All your ways are good, all your ways are sure. I will trust in you alone, higher than my sight, high above my life. I will trust in you alone. Where you go, I'll go. Where you stay, I'll stay. When you move, I'll move. I will follow you. Who you love, I'll love. How you serve, I'll serve. If this life I lose, I will follow you. Yeah, I will follow you. Yeah. Light into the world, light into my life. I will live for you alone. You're the one I seek, knowing I will find all I need in you alone, in you alone. Where you go, I'll go. Where you stay, I'll stay. When you move, I'll move. I will follow you. Who you love, I'll love. How you serve, I'll serve. If this life I lose, I will follow you. Yeah, I will follow you. Yeah. In you there's life everlasting. In you there's freedom for my soul. In you there's joy, unending joy. In you there's life everlasting. In you there's freedom for my soul. In you there's joy, unending joy. And I will follow. Who you love, I'll love. How you serve, I'll serve. If this life I lose, I will follow. Where you go, I'll go. Where you stay, I'll stay. When you move, I'll move. I will follow you. Who you love, I'll love. How you serve, I'll serve. If this life I lose, I will follow you. Yeah, I will follow you. Yeah, I will follow you. Yeah, I will follow you. Yeah.
Hey everyone, my name's Alex and thank you for joining us this morning for online worship at St. Peter's. We're so glad you're here with us today. If you're joining us for our interactive stream this morning, be sure to let us know you were here by saying hi in the chat window. You can also check out some of our other resources at the top of this page and even request prayer for your need this morning. Just click on the request prayer button below this video and one of our staff members would be happy to offer support and pray with you today. This morning we continue our Bible Gems series. This is a great series for the whole family, especially kids, and each week we focus on one story from our illustrated children's Bible. Today we're reading about the story of Jesus washing his disciples' feet. You can find this story and read it together as a family on page 254. Once again, if you don't have this illustrated Bible, we'd love to get you a copy free of charge. You can send an email to stpkids@stpetersedina.org and let us know you'd like to receive a book. At St. Peter's, we're all about meeting families at the intersection of faith and real life. We want to meet families where they are and help them discover the love of Jesus. If you'd like to help support our mission, you can do so by visiting our website and clicking on the Give button, texting any dollar amount to 84321, or by mailing a check directly to the church. We appreciate everyone who's given, and we look forward to continuing to serve you and your family. Once again, thank you for joining us today. We really hope this series has blessed you and your family, and if it has, we'd love to hear some stories about how God has been at work. Leave a comment below or tell us in the chat window. We can't wait to hear all the things that God has done. Now let's jump into our service today with our kids' message and see how Jesus showed his love and served others.
Stories of the Bible. Jesus washes his disciples' feet. This is Jesus.
Heyo!
Who is the Son of God and the Savior of the world. While Jesus was on earth, he taught everyone about God's love. He healed many people from their sickness, performed many miracles like calming storms, and even raised people from the dead.
Wahoo!
At this time, the Jewish people were celebrating a festival called Passover that had been celebrated since the time of Moses, when God brought his people out of Egypt. So Jesus and his disciples went to Jerusalem to celebrate. Jesus had 12 men who followed him through his ministry. They were called his disciples. Jesus and his disciples gathered for one final meal together. Jesus got up from the table, took off his robe, and began to wash his disciples' feet. Jesus loved his disciples, and he knew the time was coming for him to leave them and return to heaven. When Jesus came to Peter, he said,
Wait!
"Are you going to wash my feet?" Jesus said, "You don't understand what I'm doing now, but someday you will."
No!
Peter said, "You will never wash my feet." But Jesus then told him that unless he washed his feet, he would not belong to him.
Oh, well then, okay!
Then Peter said, "Then wash my hands and head as well, not just my feet." But Jesus told him that was not necessary. He just needed to wash his feet for Peter to become clean. So Jesus finished washing their feet and said that the disciples should do to others as he had done for them. He told them to follow the example that he had set for them, to serve each other and not think of themselves as greater than any other. Then God would bless them for doing as Jesus had taught them to do.
I have a theory. I feel that everyone knows how to serve. That's not the problem. The problem is serving when we don't feel like it, or we feel the person that we might serve doesn't deserve it. Like one spouse who said his wife kept questioning if he loved her. And he wanted his wife to know he loved her, but he ended up saying, "I'll tell you right now, if it's going to take my washing dishes, vacuuming floors, doing laundry for her to feel loved, you can forget about that." Yeah, I wonder how much love was felt in that home. Love isn't about saying the right thing the right way or picking the right Hallmark card so that the other person feels loved. It's more about showing it. Serving isn't about knowing what to do. It's more often about doing it. That's the way Jesus served. And that's what's going on in our story today. During the meal, Jesus stood up, poured some water into a bowl, and picked up a towel. Then, without saying anything, he knelt on the floor and started washing the disciples' feet. Without saying anything. They were shocked. Jesus was acting like a servant, but he was the Son of God. He was the Messiah. He was too important to do something like this, wasn't he? Jesus just smiled. He knew who he was, but he kept washing their dirty, dirty feet. It's interesting, one of the phrases, the catchphrases that gained some popularity during the pandemic was better together. Approaching others with human kindness and knowing we're better when we approach challenges together, knowing we're better when we serve one another. So many times it's not that people don't care to be kind. It's that life is moving too quickly for us to stop and think about how an outpouring of service could start. We're hurrying home to make dinner. We're late to pick up the kids from practice. We're swamped at work. Honestly, it's hard to think about others at that time. And any thought given to someone else and how we might change their day for good gets buried under the noise and the stressors of what we have going on in our own lives and in our own situation. Let's think about Jesus. Talk about stress. Talk about pressure. He was facing an inevitable horror hours before being arrested, recognizing what was before him. He could have delivered a sermon that would have been remembered forever, but he didn't choose words. He demonstrated action. Rather than filling in the details about his future and getting sympathy, which would have been very appropriate, instead, he got down on his hands and knees. He served. He became nothing to show others they were something in his loving eyes. If they couldn't grasp his humility, all the events of the next hours going to the cross, it would be totally incomprehensible. And that's what he did. The ultimate act of serving.
Who do you think prepared the Last Supper? Look, bread, it's easy enough. It's flour, water, a little salt, herbs if you want more flavor. Normally you'd add yeast, but not at Passover. No, at Passover we cannot wait for the bread to rise. Our deliverance from Pharaoh is at hand. So the story goes. Passover is always the same. We eat the bread, we drink the wine. There's lamb, bitter herbs. We remember our deliverance and our coming deliverance. Next year in Jerusalem, we always say, Messiah will come. It's always the same. But sometimes it seems so far away, so complicated. But this year, things were, well, 2 men followed our servant home from fetching water. They were wanting a place to celebrate Passover with their rabbi, and my husband and I, we had an extra room. So I baked the unleavened bread, and I delivered it when they arrived. The rabbi graciously introduced himself, and a horde of 12 men followed him into our upper room. I'd heard about this rabbi. Wild tales of healing blind men, raising the dead. walking on water. So naturally, I stood outside the door and I peeked around the corner. And that is when he turned it all upside down. You see, the person who sits at the head of the table isn't supposed to get up and wash other people's feet. But this rabbi, he was moving from man to man, washing each of their dirty feet. Well, I pulled back before I was seen, but still, I listened. I stayed and listened. His words were sure, kind, but like fire, like no rabbi I'd ever heard. If you see me, then you see the Father, he said. He also said that he would be broken for them. He talked of the new covenant and being children rather than orphans. And as the bread was passed, the unleavened bread of deliverance, he said, I am the living bread. Living bread. What could we have understood about that at the time? A new covenant was coming, and our deliverance was at our doorstep. Little did we know that our entire world was about to be turned upside down.
It was about to get loud, chaotic, forceful, unfair. The challenge was right in front of them, but not Jesus. He was so powerful, so different. He worked miracles. He showed compassion to every person, every race, every age, women, girls, men, boys, grandpas, grandmas. So how could he show love when what he was about to experience was to be so very much about hate, and it was going to happen very, very quickly? Well, he served. He washed feet. The kind of love that Jesus demonstrates isn't the kindness and goodwill that comes on special occasions or holidays. I'm talking about day-to-day interactions that offer a glimmer of love or hope. The kind of goodness that abounds in equal measure for the loved one and a stranger on the street. People on both sides of our lives and our bubbles. Every Tuesday night at St. Peter's, we have a remote control car ministry. Students come in and learn all about racing, about fixing things, about living differently. And this week was opposites night. You know what an opposite is, but trying to define it without using the word in the definition isn't so easy. So let's just do it without defining it. For example, if I was to say up, you would say down. Happy, sad. Big, small. Slow, fast. Go, stop. Over, under. And here comes Jesus. And he plays the opposite game. And I opened my Bible and said, Jesus told his followers, hate your friends. No, he didn't say that. So I asked them to turn the statement around. What's the opposite of hate your friends? Love your enemies. That's the kind of life that Jesus calls his followers to live. Not hurt, not punch, not get even with, not anything we sometimes feel like doing to our enemies who make our lives so different. He says, love your enemies. Do good to those who hate you. Bless those who curse you. Pray for those who mistreat you. So let's go back to that meal. Jesus is playing the opposite game. What's the opposite of master? It's a servant. And so he serves. And they would never forget it. And thousands of years later, the church hasn't forgotten it. But it's so much more than just acts of kindness. It's an act of undeserved love. It's a selfless serving. Remember the opposite game? Hate your friends. There's more to this than just love your enemies. What's the opposite of the middle word of Jesus' sentence that he asks? Hate your friends. Well, the opposite of yours is mine. Jesus says, love my enemies. He's preparing them for what they're about to witness. Love my enemies. When you see them whip me, when you watch my bogus trial, when they tell lies about me, when no one, not even the religious priests, speak up for the truth, will you love my enemies? Peter, James, and John. Love my enemies. Love the soldier who takes a sledgehammer to drive nails through my bones. Love the politician who washes his hands of the entire situation. Love the crowd who cheers every time my blood splats through the air. Love the bystanders who laugh as they see me in front of the whole world hanging on a cross. I can. I will. Father, forgive them. You see, if you can forgive them, if you can serve those people, then you will understand my ultimate act of service. And he says, I love you, and your sinful life makes you my enemy. And I don't just wash your feet. I will wash your hands that have brought harm to others. I will wash your mouth, your mind, your heart. When you see me on the cross, remember, I am your servant. I've come to give my life so that you could have life. And disciples, when you serve one another, when you show love to someone who seems unlovable, you show them Jesus, your master. A subtle reminder is sometimes all it takes. A nudge to just do one small thing. Pick up a towel and clean up the kitchen next time you're a guest at someone's home. Go back and thank a shelf stocker at the store, or the woman at the customer service desk, or the teenager at the drive-through window. Thank them for what they do. Stop and ask a person experiencing a hard stretch their story. In fact, ask a homeless person about their story. That's it. That's the stuff. Real and important change begins with small, courageous acts of service. So this week, why don't you try out the opposite game? Take time to serve, not desire for others to serve you. Speak words of kindness, not the kind of response that the other person deserves. Give, share, show generosity to a world that wants to take and steal and rob your things, your reputation, your peace. Here are a few ideas to get you started. Plant a flower pot for a few people on your mind this week. That'd be kind of interesting. Buy coffee for the person behind you in line at the coffee shop. Make a call to a friend. Introduce yourself to a stranger. Write a thank you note to a former boss or teacher. Volunteer. Tell someone what you like best about them. I read that 99% of kindness, of generosity, of fairness, of justice, of serving is follow through. It requires sacrifice. It is uncomfortable. You hold the door for an older person on their way out of the grocery store. That's kind, but when you help load their groceries into their trunk, even though you're already running late, that's uncomfortably kind. A teacher who gives a struggling student an extra credit opportunity, that's kind. Coming in early every day to go over her lessons is uncomfortably kind. Jesus picked up a towel, and by doing so, he changed the world forever. Today, our Bible gem is serve one another. Our blessing today is these words about serving from Galatians chapter 5, and I share them from the Message. It is absolutely clear that God has called you to a free life. Just make sure that you don't use this freedom as an excuse to do whatever you want to do and destroy your freedom. Rather, use your freedom to serve one another in love. That's how freedom grows. For everything we know about God's Word is summed up in a single sentence: love others as you love yourself.